How many of us highlight or underline the standout parts of our books to easily revisit? In this audio series, I'm going to share the most important and compelling parts of the most important and compelling books across my library for newcomers to them and for those who don't have the time or opportunity to read them. This is going to be from the book The Order of Time by Carlo Rovelli. It's going to be part one on the nature of time. Starting page 2. Reality is often very different from what it seems. The Earth appears to be flat, but is in fact spherical. The sun seems to revolve in the sky when it is really we who are spinning. Neither is the structure of time what it seems to be. It is different from this uniform, universal flowing. One after another, the characteristic features of time have proved to be approximations, mistakes determined by our perspective, just like the flatness of the Earth or the revolving of the sun. What we call time is a complex collection of structures, of layers. Under increasing scrutiny and ever greater depth, time has lost layers one after another, piece by piece. Quantity, time, melts into a spider web of times. We do not describe how the world evolves in time. We describe how things evolve in local time, and how local times evolve relative to each other. The world is not like a platoon advancing at the pace of a single commander. It's a network of events affecting each other. The difference between past and future, between cause and effect, between memory and hope, between regret and intention, and the elementary laws that describe the mechanisms of the world, there is no such difference. The crucial point is the difference from what happens with falling bodies. A ball may fall, but it can also come back up by rebounding, for instance. Heat cannot. This is the only basic law of physics that distinguishes the past from the future. None of the others do. Every time a difference is manifested between the past and the future, heat is involved. Only where there is heat is there a distinction between past and future. Thoughts, for instance, unfold from the past to the future, not vice versa. And in fact, thinking produces heat in our heads. In fact, the only equation of fundamental physics that knows any difference between past and the future is the equation for time zero. Thermal agitation is like a continual shuffling of a pack of cards. If the cards are in order, the shuffling disorders them. In this way, heat passes from hot to cold and not vice versa, by shuffling, by the natural disordering of everything. The difference between past and future does not lie in the elementary laws of motion. It does not reside in the deep grammar of nature. It is the natural disordering that leads to gradually less particular, less special situations. We often say that cause precedes effects, and yet, in the elementary grammar of things, there is no distinction between cause and effect. There are regularities, represented by what we call physical laws, that link events of different times, but they are symmetric between future and past. In a microscopic description, there can be no sense in which the past is different from the future. 10 years before understanding that time is slowed down by mass, Einstein had realized that it was slowed down by speed. Time passes more slowly for the one who keeps moving. There is no universal present, but what we call proper time, local time, depends not only on where you are and your degree of proximity to masses, it depends also on the speed at which you move. There is no special moment on Proxima b that corresponds to what constitutes the present, here and now. Pause for a moment to let this conclusion sink in. In my opinion, it is the most astounding conclusion arrived at in the whole of contemporary physics. The notion of the present refers to things that are close to us, not to anything that is far away. Our present does not extend throughout the universe. It is like a bubble around us. The idea that a well-defined now exists throughout the universe is an illusion, an illegitimate extrapolation of our own experience. The word time derives from an Indo-European root, di, or die, meaning to divide. It is only in the 14th century in Europe that people's lives start to be regulated by mechanical clocks. For millennia before clocks, our only regular way of measuring time had been the alternation of day and night. The rhythm of day followed by night also regulates the lives of plants and animals. Diurnal rhythms are ubiquitous in the natural world. They are essential to life, and it seems to me probable that they played a key role in the very origin of life on Earth, since an oscillation is required to set a mechanism in motion. Living organisms are full of clocks of various kinds: molecular, neuronal, chemical, hormonal, each of them more or less in tune with the others. The way in which we have traditionally conceived of time is counting the ways in which things change. Aristotle is the first we are aware of to have asked himself the question, what is time? And he came to the following conclusion: time is the measurement of change. Isaac Newton recognized that a kind of time exists that measures days and movements, the one treated by Aristotle, but he also contends that, in addition to this, another time must exist: true time that passes regardless, independently of things and of their changes. If all things remain motionless and even the movements of our souls were to be frozen, this time would continue to pass. According to Newton, unaffected and equal to itself, true time is the exact opposite of what Aristotle writes. Newton's model, based on the idea of time independent of things, has enabled the construction of modern physics, a physics that works incredibly well, and it assumes that time exists as an entity that runs in a way which is uniform and imperturbable. Don't take your intuitions and ideas to be natural. They are often the products of the ideas of audacious thinkers who came before us. The synthesis between Aristotle's time and Newton's is the most valuable achievement made by Einstein. It is the crowning jewel of his thought. The answer is that time and space, Newton had intuited, the existence of beyond tangible matter, do effectively exist. They are real. Time and space are real phenomenon, but they are in no way absolute. They are not at all independent from what happens. Space-time is a gravitational field, and vice versa. It is something that exists by itself as Newton intuited, even without matter, but it is not an entity that is different from the other things in the world as Newton believed. It is a field like the others. The notion of the present does not work. In the vast universe, there is nothing that we can reasonably call present. The substratum that determines the duration of time is not an independent entity, different from the others that makes up the world. It is an aspect of a dynamic field. It jumps, fluctuates, materializes only by interacting, and is not to be found beneath a minimum scale. The world is nothing but change. None of the pieces that time has lost, singularity, direction, independence, the present, continuity, puts into question the fact that the world is a network of events. It is better to say the world is made up of events, not entities. The physics and astronomy that will work, from Ptolemy to Galileo, from Newton to Schrödinger, will be mathematical descriptions of precisely how things change, not of how they are. Newton's mechanics, Maxwell's equations, quantum mechanics, and so on tell us how events happen, not how things are. We understand biology by studying how living beings evolve and live. We understand psychology by studying how we interact with each other, how we think. The incessant happening that wearies the world is not ordered along a timeline. It is not measured by a gigantic tick-tocking. It does not even form a four-dimensional geometry. It is a boundless and disorderly network of quantum events. We have two different ideas. Presentism, the idea that only the present is real, and the past and the future are not, and that reality evolves from one present to another. Eternalism is the idea that the flow and change are illusory. Past, present, and future are all equally real and equally existent. This idea has come to be called the block universe. The idea that it is necessary to think of the history of the universe as a single block, all equally real, and that the passage from one moment to the next is illusory. The temporal structure of the world is more complex than a simple single linear succession of instants, but this does not mean that it is not existent or illusory. The distinction between past, present, and future is not an illusion. It is the temporal structure of the world. But the temporal structure of the world is not that of presentism. There are so many things that are not part of the elementary grammar of the world, and that simply emerge. High and low emerge in certain circumstances in the universe, as when there is a large mass nearby. This dense marble table would look like a fog if I were shrunk to a small enough atomic scale. Everything in the world becomes blurred when seen close up. Where does the savanna begin and the desert end? We cut the world into large slices. We think of it in terms of concepts that are meaningful for us, that emerge at a certain scale. Time emerges from a world without time. The entire difference between past and future may be attributed solely to the fact that the entropy of the world was low in the past. But the entropy of the world in the far past appears very low to us, but this might not reflect the exact state of the world. It might regard the subset of the world's variables with which we, as physical systems, have interacted. The rotation of the heavens is a perspective effect due to our particular way of moving on Earth, rather than a mysterious property of the dynamics of the universe. Something similar might be true for time zero. The low initial entropy of the universe might be due to the particular way in which we, the physical systems that are part of it, interact with it. We are attuned to a very particular subset of aspects of the universe, and it is this that is oriented in time. Perhaps the flow of time is not a characteristic of the universe. Like the rotation of the heavens, it is due to the particular perspective that we have from our corner of it. It is the growth of entropy that powers the great story of the cosmos. The entire history of the universe consists of this halting and leaping cosmic growth of entropy. It is neither rapid nor uniform, because things remain trapped in basins of low entropy, the pile of wood, the cloud of hydrogen, until something opens a door onto a process that finally allows entropy to increase. The growth of entropy itself to open new doors through which entropy can increase further. A dam in the mountains, for instance, retains water until it is gradually worn down over time, and the freed water escapes downhill once again, causing entropy to grow. Over the course of this irregular trajectory, large or small portions of the universe remain isolated in relatively stable situations for periods that can be very prolonged. Living beings are made up of similarly intertwined processes. The entire coming into being of the cosmos is a gradual process of disordering, like the pack of cards that begins in order and then becomes disordered through shuffling. But there is no immense hands that shuffle the universe. It does this mixing by itself, and the interactions among its parts that open and close during the course of the mixing, step by step. Vast regions remain trapped, and configurations that remain ordered until here and there new channels are opened through which disorder spreads. The entire universe is like a mountain that collapses in slow motion, like a structure that very gradually crumbles. From the most minute events to the most complex ones, it is this dance of ever-increasing entropy, nourished by the initial low entropy of the universe, that is the real dance of Shiva the Destroyer. Traces of the past exist, and not traces of the future, only because entropy was low in the past. There can be no other reason, since the only source of the difference between past and future is the low entropy of the past. It is the presence of abundant traces of the past that produces the familiar sensation that the past is determined. The absence of any analogous traces of the future produces the sensation that the future is open. The existence of traces serves to make it possible for our brain to dispose of extensive maps of past events. There is nothing analogous to this for future ones. This fact is at the origin of our sensation of being able to act freely in the world, choosing between different futures even though we are unable to act upon the past. We have been designed during the course of evolution in order to make calculations about possible futures. This is what we call deciding, since they elaborate possible alternative futures that would follow if the present were exactly as it is, except for some detail. We are naturally inclined to think in terms of causes that precede effects. In our experience, the notion of cause is thus asymmetrical in time. Cause precedes effect. But this does not happen because there is a magical force of causality going from the past to the future. It happens because the improbability of a correlation between two events requires something improbable. It is only the low entropy of the past that provides such improbability. Laws of elementary physics do not speak of causes but only of regularities, and these are symmetrical with regard to past and future. Bertrand Russell noted this in a famous article, writing emphatically that the law of causality is a relic of a bygone age, surviving like the monarchy only because it is erroneously supposed to do no harm. He exaggerates, of course, because the fact that there are no causes at an elementary level is not a sufficient reason to render obsolete the very notion of cause. At an elementary level, there are no cats either, but we do not for this reason cease to bother with cats. The low entropy of the past renders the notion of cause an effective one. The possibility of predicting something in the future obviously improves our chances of survival, and consequently, evolution has selected the neural structures that allow it. We are the result of this selection, this being between past and future events, essential to our mental structure. This for us is the flow of time. It is in our brain that an extension in time becomes condensed into a perception of duration. We are stories contained within the 20 complicated centimeters between our eyes, lines drawn by traces, by the re-mingling together of things in the world, and oriented towards predicting events in the future, toward the direction of increasing entropy in a rather particular corner of this immense chaotic universe. This space, memory combined with our continuous process of anticipation, is the source of our sensing time as time, and ourselves as ourselves. Think about it. Our introspection is easily capable of imagining itself without there being space or matter, but can it imagine itself not existing in time? Third part of the great Indian epic, the Mahabharata, a powerful spirit named Yaksa asks the oldest and wisest of the Pandava, Yudhishthira, what is the greatest of all mysteries? The answer given resounds across millennia. Every day, countless people die, and yet those who remain live as if they were immortals. It seems to me that life, this brief life, is nothing other than this, the incessant cry of these emotions that drive us, that we sometimes attempt to channel in the name of a god, a political faith, and a ritual that reassures us that, fundamentally, everything is in order, and a great and boundless love, and the cry is beautiful. Sometimes it is a cry of pain, sometimes it is a song. And song is the awareness of time. It is time. It is the hymn of the Vedas that is itself the flowering of time. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.